Hello, good morning and welcome to another important time we talk about business. It is Business 360 and my name is Black. On Business 360 this morning, Trump hits South Korea with 25% tariff. We begin a conversation this morning from there. US President Donald Trump announced plans to raise tariff on South Korean goods to 25% from 15%, citing delays by the South Korean legislature in approving a trade deal. Despite the news, South Korea's benchmark KOSPI reversed early losses and rallied to new record highs as deep buyers stepped in chip makers, leading to the advance. In Nigeria, workers are unimpressed with marginal salary rise. Some workers have expressed mixed and largely underwhelming reaction to recent changes in their take-home pay following the implementation of new personal income tax reforms, with many stating that the increases are marginal and insufficient to meaningfully alleviate economic pressures. According to reports, the new tax reform laws introduced several adjustments to the PIT regime. Individuals' earnings, the national minimum wage or LACE, are now exempt from personal income tax, while employees with an annual gross income of up to 1.2 million naira, equivalent to about 800,000 naira in taxable income, are also exempt. The reforms further provide for reduced pay-as-you-earn tax for those earning up to 20 million naira annually and exempt gifts from taxation. Despite these changes, several workers have said that the impact on their salaries has been modest. Some said their salaries rose by reasoning amounts following the adjustments. Budget details show that 10.93 billion naira is allocated for personal costs and 1.87 billion naira for overheads, with over 91% of the allocation devoted to capital projects. Meanwhile, still Nigeria. A Nigeria's authority moves to debit personal bank account over unpaid taxes. Nigerians face yet another controversy surrounding the country's tax laws amid Lagos Internal Revenue Service's notice on the tax law implementation. Lagos Internal Revenue Service in a notice disclosed that a tax institution has empowered or powered enshrined to it by Section 60 of the Nigeria Tax Act administration to recoup unpaid tax through direct bank debits. The Nigeria Revenue Service and the Presidential Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms Committee have not debunked the report. The chairman of the committee, Taiwo Yedele, referred to his ex-statement, which noted that the move is the last resort for the tax authority. The power of substitution is a tax recovery mechanism that permits the tax authority to issue a directive to a third party as substitute to remit funds belonging to a defaulting taxpayer to settle a final establish an unpaid tax liability. This power is only exercised after all legal and administrative processes, including appeals to the court, have been exhausted. He further explained that the power of arbitrary substitution is neither arbitrary nor discretionary, stressing that its use is strictly governed by due process. Meanwhile, the latest clarification falls short of his earlier position, which stated that the new tax laws did not empower anybody, federal, state, or local government councils to debit personal accounts. Still in Nigeria, the federal government has earmarked 145 billion naira in the 2026 appropriation bill for the construction of 10-ton capacity local fish feed mill across Nigeria's 6 geopolitical zones. This comes as the government allocated a total of 149.24 billion naira for Nigeria's marine and blue economy, with 136.4 billion naira directed towards capital expenditure, signaling an aggressive push to develop infrastructure, enhance safety, and grow fisheries and other blue economy sectors. Other projects highlighted in the budget include the provision and construction of solar panels as the alternative power sources for the ministry, allocated 129.9 million naira, and establishment of a regional maritime development bank, which received 83.3 million naira, among others. Budget details show that 10.93 billion naira is allocated for personal costs and 1.87 billion naira for overheads, with over 91% of the allocation devoted to capital projects. The intervention outline targets the dredging of inland waterways across Lagos, Lokoja, Onitsha, Baro, Calabar, Akwa Ibom, and Hadejia-Jamare Rivers corridors, construction of jetties, revitalization of circular seaports, development of fish terminals and harbors, and the procurement of patrol boats, trawlers, and safety equipment to reduce waterway accidents. And now to the oil sector, as Dangote refinery resorts to gasoline imports amid downtime. A Dangote refinery is grappling with a refining capacity challenge following the prolonged shutdown of the residual fluid catalytic cracker, RFCC, according to global commodities intelligence firm Kepler. The challenge had pushed the $20 billion plant to import gasoline in January in a bid to ramp up its capacity amid its downtime. In a recent report, Kepler explained that the 650,000 barrels per day refinery has resorted to a lighter crude gravity of about 37 to 39 since the fourth quarter of 2025 over its RFCC outage. The report said the move by Dangote refinery was requisite to keep other units of the refinery operational at a time when its 200,000 barrels per day RFCC remains offline. This has, in the past week, resorted to increased imports of gasoline blending components estimated around 45,000 barrels per day to ramp up its capacity. And now we'll go on a quick break, and when we're back, the conversation continues in the world of business as a guest will be joining the conversation to look at new discoveries in the area of oil in Nigeria and Niger Delta. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. It's your Business 360 and my name is Blyden Ukem. On Business 360 now, we'll be looking at some interesting features, especially the one that involves NNPCL and Chevron as they discover fresh oil well in Niger Delta. The Group Chief Executive Officer of the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, NNPCL, Ojulari, has commended Chevron Nigeria Limited following the discovery of a new oil well in the Niger Delta. Multiplicity of conversation indicate that the discovery was made at the Ojulari 07 appraisal and exploration well located in the shallow offshore western Niger Delta and operated by Chevron under the NNPC, a CNL joint venture. NNPCL spokesperson John Ode noted that achievement underscores the strength of the long-standing partnership between both companies. Ojulari described the discovery as a significant boost to Nigeria's hydrocarbon development efforts. According to him, the success of the Ojulari 07 well reinforces the joint venture's commitment to responsibly growing the nation's oil and gas reserves while supporting increased production and energy security. Also reacting, the Executive Vice President Upstream NNPCL Limited Udi India added that NNPCL looks forward to working closely with Chevron to advance the discovery towards timely development and monetization. NNPCL explained that the Ojulari 07 well was drilled as part of the joint venture's ongoing efforts to further delineate and unlock hydrocarbon potentials within the asset portfolio. Drilling operations commenced in late November 2025 and were completed by mid-December 2025, with all activities carried out safely, efficiently, and in compliance with approved regulatory and operational standards. According to the company, results from the well are highly encouraging, confirming a significant presence of hydrocarbons across multiple reservoir zones. My guest joins the conversation this morning, looking at all the possibilities with this new discovery. My guest, Dr. Wisdom Enang, and energy experts join the conversation this morning. Good morning, Dr. Enang.
Good morning. Thank you very much for having me.
Good to have you, Dr. Enang. It's been a while we've not had you on the show, but let's get to the thick of the conversation. A new discovery by the NNPCL, a joint work with the likes of Chevron in this one, but the conversation is now a new oil well, new discovery, and the potentiality that comes with this one is 146,000 barrels per day. First, I want to ask you what you make of it, put that side by side, and with the possibilities of Nigeria meeting its OPEC a quarter in the last 5 months. Nigeria's not made that quarter, and even last month, December, it dropped from 1.43 million barrels per day to 1.42 million barrels per day. So as it stands, 80,000 capacity makes a difference, but a new discovery from a Nigerian point of view in the oil sector.
All right, thank you very much. I personally get very excited about the prospect of new discoveries, and definitely so much so when those discoveries are made by international majors like Chevron, Shell, because they have the money and they're able to go in there and give us the fastest time to resource recovery. So I personally think this portends well for Nigeria from an investment standpoint and from a resource standpoint. The only thing is, for us, very quickly, we must be able to incentivize, the various companies that are making discoveries, not only Chevron, for them to be able to make a very prompt final investment decision. And ultimately, that is what will bring that volume on stream for Nigeria. I'll give you a little bit of a case study on what I think is going to happen. Eventually, when the scientific studies have been done and the sort of well profiles have been made, ultimately, I would see a replication of the same thing that has been done for Shell by the federal government, done for Chevron. Shell recently indicated interest in the Bonga North project, and it's going to be about $7 billion worth of project. So the federal government decided to give Shell targeted incentives in addition to the executive orders that will be given on oil and gas industry, as well as the PIA, to give targeted incentives to make that project very competitive. And it is on the back of that targeted incentive that Shell is working expeditiously towards taking a final investment decision on that project. So this is what I think is going to be the pattern for this particular opportunity.
And this one, when it has to do with opportunities that comes with it. But many argue, because one of the biggest concerns from a Nigerian point of view has been that of maintenance, adequate improvement in terms of production. Just as I said earlier, one thing is to discover this, but does it automatically turn into increase in production quarter for Nigeria? Because many would argue that the already available oil wells are enough to give Nigeria better production. Yes, Nigeria is still #1 country in Africa in terms of production of crude and hydrocarbon reserves in that direction. But a conversation is, does it automatically translate into more production?
Ultimately in the future. So think about it this way. Even in our local lives, there are opportunities that you chase today that would not necessarily bring food to the table today, but it will bring food to the table. The timeline between the opportunity, execution, and the resource coming out and bearing fruits for us is anywhere between 5 to 10 years. It's not immediate. Just talking experientially from my experience about conceptualizing oil and gas projects, executing, and reaping the benefits. But I think what is going to happen is ultimately, if we do not begin to conceptualize new opportunities and we don't scope them, then we do not have a clear pathway towards investment for the future. And if we do not, then when these current resources dry up, like similar to what we have in Angola and even what we have in Nigeria, because of matured wells, then we'll be left cap in hand economically. But I think this is the time where we begin to grow sufficient opportunities for the future.
A sufficient opportunity for the future. And now let's talk about another concern here now. It would be about Dangote Refinery, because when you talk about sufficient opportunity for the future, it seemed like Dangote Refinery was that one everyone Nigerian was looking forward to and hoping that there will be increase in terms of not just production but forex reserve that's coming from Nigeria, and the prices of petrol are locally dropping, but it's not really added up that way. We'll get to talk about the prices in a bit. But recent news has indicated that Dangote Refinery is grappling with a refining capacity challenge following the prolonged shutdown of the 200,000 barrels per day residual fluid catalytic cracker, according to reports we're having. And this, by that order, has made Dangote to go into the importation market to import about 45,000 barrels per day to ramp up its production or add up to its production capacity. What do you make of these? Put this side by side with a recent also by Dangote Refinery, where he said that there's no need for importation in the country. That battle with marketers, importers in the country. Now Dangote is importing. Put this side by side. Are we getting to that point where we can look on the flip side and say there's necessity for some level of importation in the country?
Well, generally speaking, in a free market system, the importation is always an option, as well as the possibility to produce and sell at whatever price. I think we've always argued that, or whether it's just, for the purposes of actually price checking the Dangote refinery, or whether there's a natural need. But it's very difficult because we're not very clear about the sort of consumption that we're looking at in country. We haven't had firm data on that. It's always, the data are not converging towards a pattern. Sometimes the data themselves look very questionable. So in the absence of that, I personally feel that the importation right now is just for the purpose of checkmating prices and all of that. It's not really for the purpose of satisfying quantity. A few quantity of imports here and there are not, again, it depends on whatever interest the party is looking at. For example, the importers here are trying to crash the prices as well. Dangote himself is also trying to make sure that he stays afloat from a price standpoint. So there is no clarity as to what is creating those patterns.
All right, no clarity towards creating and those patterns, but thank you very much, Dr. Wisdom and for being a part of the conversation. Good insights there when it has to do with a new discovered oil in the Niger Delta, the possibility come with it. We hope that there won't be communal clashes when it has to do with this new discovery. But thank you for being a part of the conversation this morning.
Thank you very much.
It's basically what it ought to be, talking about new discoveries in the oil sector and the Dangote refinery, going back to importation in this one, when the residual catalytic fluid fragment of its refinery is having concerns and being shut down. When you talk about the segment of refinery, it's about 200,000 barrels per day in capacity, and has to import about 45,000 barrels per day capacity of petrol to the country. And meanwhile, the Dangote refinery has also increased the gantry price of petrol from 699 naira per litre to 799 naira per litre, and as a result, the refinery said the MRS filling station will now sell petrol at 839 naira per litre. It's another conversation for another day, but we'll go on another quick break, and when we're back, the conversation continues. And now we'll be looking at the markets. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. It's Business 360 and my name is Platinum Kim, and now to the markets, and we first begin with the commodity markets as the price of oil falls for a second day. A WTI crude oil futures fell to around $60.3 per barrel today, extending losses from the previous session amid the resumption of Kazakh crude exports, and Kazakhstan's Tengiz oil field is expected to restart soon, while the CPC also said its export terminal on the Black Sea coast has returned to full capacity operations, and losses were capped by supply disruption in the U.S. and elevated geopolitical risks. U.S. producers are estimated to have lost roughly 15% of national output over the weekend due to a massive winter storm. Meanwhile, tensions in the Middle East, with the U.S. increasing its military presence amid frictions with Iran, continue to stoke concerns about potential disruption to regional supplies. The Russia-Ukraine peace talks last weekend failed to reach a breakthrough, although both sides agreed to resume negotiations next weekend. And traders now look ahead to OPEC Plus meeting later this week, where the group is expected to maintain its plan to keep output steady. And now to the market, first the energy market and metals and agricultural market, and afterwards we go to the financial markets. The energy market, crude oil price stands at $60 per barrel, a downward 0.029 points, negative 0.05%, a drop, not too much in terms of volatility. And Brent, which represents Nigeria's price benchmark, price level stands at $65 per barrel, falling a negative 0.13%. The metal market this morning. Metal prices begin with a price of gold at $5,086 per ounce, gaining 74 points this morning, a 1.5% appreciation, and silver price gaining 8.38% appreciation, copper dropping a negative 1.98%, steel price also dropping this morning. Agricultural commodities. The agricultural commodities has the price of soybeans at $1,062 per bushel. Soybeans gaining 0.43 points this morning, a slight gain it is. Wheat price also falling at a negative 0.5%, and the price of palm oil stands at 4,251 Malaysian ringgit per ton, gaining 27 points this morning. Let's quickly go to the financial market, the state of the Naira this morning, the US dollar against the Naira, and afterwards we'll look at the state of cryptocurrency as we set to close. The US dollar against the Naira, a price level stands at 1,410 Naira, equaling $1 as the dollar drops by a negative of 5.19 points against the Naira. Naira being strong this morning. The euro against the Naira also at 1,673 Naira, equaling €1. The euro falling a negative 8.23 points against the Naira, and the pound also dropping a negative 7.13 points against the Naira. Naira being so strong this morning. And the cryptocurrency market. Crypto market indicates the price of Bitcoin at $87,841. Bitcoin falling by 410 points, a negative 0.46%, and Ether at $2,908 for one Ether, dropping 18 points, a negative 0.62%. Binance gaining 1.7 points. Cardano, Solana, Ripples all downward. As we close, let's look at the African stock market this morning. What the stock market in Africa is saying, beginning with the Nigerian stock price level standing at 165,518 index points, gaining 5 basis points this morning. Not a reasonable change in the market for the Nigerian stock market. A South African stock SAO dropping 157 basis points. Egyptian stocks EGX 30 gaining 83 basis points, and stock market in Nairobi gaining 1 point this morning, and Nairobi all share no significant change in the market. is a box that comes from the market in the world of business amid all the changes that projects what happens even further into the midweek. But here we have to draw the curtain in today's edition of Business 360. Thank you for being a part of it. My name is Bladen Kim, and thank you for watching.